Welcome back to Director's Choice. At first glance, the movies Luca and Encanto seem to have nothing in common, but upon closer inspection, you might notice an undeniable connection between the movies. This connection is Bruno. The name Bruno appears in both Luca and Encanto. In Luca, Bruno is Alberto's estranged father who abandoned him when he was much younger, and in Encanto, Bruno is Mirabel's uncle who spends most of the movie living in the walls of the house. Is it possible that these two characters are one and the same? Well, there's a theory that claims they are, and in this video, we are breaking down that theory to see just how true it is. The Pixar theory. The Pixar theory is a constantly growing universe with connected characters and storylines. Today we'll be analyzing a section of the theory that's a tad bit hazy. This section claims that Bruno from Encanto is in fact the same Bruno who abandoned Alberto and Luca. First, let's look at the two Brunos separately before we look at what connects them. Bruno and Luca. This Bruno is an unseen antagonist in the movie. He is Alberto's father, and he abandoned him when he was only a child. Bruno told Alberto that he was old enough to live on his own and promptly left. It's important to note that Bruno was never officially confirmed as Alberto's father, but there are many things that suggest that he is. First is Alberto's use of the catchphrase, Silencio Bruno.
Silencio Bruno.
Silencio Bruno.
Silencio Bruno.
Silencio Bruno.
Silencio Bruno.
He uses this catchphrase right when he's about to do something crazy and potentially dangerous. Bruno is the voice inside Alberto's head that tells him not to do these reckless things. It is the voice of reason he tries to silence. Alberto also mentions a few warnings that Bruno gave him, including, "You can't," and "Don't put that in your mouth," which are both classic warnings that would come from a parent. In the end, Bruno abandoned his son and left him to fend for himself, which ultimately shaped Alberto into who he is. Bruno's abandonment is the reason Alberto is so possessive of the people in his life. He lives in constant fear that another person he loves is going to abandon him. Bruno in Encanto. At the beginning of the movie, Bruno was seen as a villainous figure who no one spoke about. He is the only son of the Madrigal matriarch, Alma, and her deceased husband, Pedro. Like most of the Madrigal clan, Bruno has a special gift, the gift of precognition. In other words, he can see the future. The Madrigals and the townspeople treated Bruno like a harbinger of doom because of the nature of his visions. They all failed to understand that he had no control over what he saw. Bruno was estranged from his family for 10 years, and during that time, it was even forbidden to mention his name. It turned out that he left to protect his niece, Mirabel, and the rest of the Madrigal family after he had a vision about Mirabel and Casita. But Bruno's love for his family kept him from ever really leaving Casa Madrigal. That and really tall mountains that separated the town from the rest of the world. So if Bruno never left, then how could he possibly be Alberto's father? Is Bruno Alberto's father? Now it's time for us to play detective and analyze the evidence. There are a few obvious discrepancies in the Bruno-Alberto theory. The first is in fact that Encanto takes place in Colombia and Luca takes place in Italy. How did Bruno get all the way to Italy when he said he couldn't even cross over the mountains? This blows a very big hole in the theory, but it doesn't make it completely false. The second discrepancy is the timing of the two movies. Although there are a few points that may help the timings add up, we don't know the exact time period that Encanto takes place. But going off a few clues, we might be able to get a better idea. The burning candle in Encanto was given to the Madrigals after Pedro sacrificed himself, and it has been burning for the past 50 years. Pedro was murdered by a group of armed men who rode on horses and carried swords, so it's safe to say that this happened a long time ago. Judging by the nature of the conflict, this war is most likely the Thousands Day War, which was fought in Colombia from 1899 to 1902. So Pedro's death happened sometime during this war. Adding the 50 years that the magic candle has been burning would mean that Encanto takes place in the 1950s. This also tallies when you look at the type of clothes they wear in the movie. Luca also takes place in the 1950s, which helps the timing of the two movies line up. The third discrepancy is Alberto's last name, Scorfano, which does not tie into the theory that he is a Madrigal. The only way to explain this is that Bruno and his sea monster girlfriend decided to use her last name for their son, so they would protect him. The Madrigal family was probably famous all over the world, so it makes sense that they wanted to protect their son by giving him a different last name. Another part of this theory that we need to analyze is the age of each character. Mirabel is 15 in Encanto, and the ceremony where Madrigals are bestowed with gifts takes place when they are 5. This means that Bruno has been gone for 10 years. The theory suggests that in those 10 years, Bruno left Casa Madrigal, traveled to Italy, met a sea monster, fell in love and had a kid, and then abandoned him. In Luca, Alberto is 14, which means that if this theory is true, Bruno has been gone from his son's life for at least 4 years. When Luca confronts Alberto about the markings on the wall, he tells him that he used to count the days since his father left, but he stopped after a while. The markings on the wall round up to about a year of counting, which means that Luca stopped waiting for his father to come back after a year. The theory claims that when Luca says a while as he is understanding things, he actually stopped counting 4 years ago. Why did Bruno abandon Alberto? We know for a fact that Bruno loves his family, so if this theory is true, then he would only abandon Alberto if he absolutely had to. But what was so important that Bruno had to leave his son? The answer to this question is Mirabel. Before Bruno left Casa Madrigal, he had a vision that showed 2 possible outcomes. One outcome was Mirabel standing in front of a broken casita, and the other showed her standing in front of an intact casita. Bruno chose to leave because he didn't want the Madrigal family to blame Mirabel for the cracks in the house. She had it bad enough already after she didn't receive the gift during the ceremony, so he wanted to protect her. After Bruno stayed with Alberto for 10 years, he realized that his vision was about to come to fruition, so he left his son so he could save his niece. Similarities between the alleged father and son. There are a few similarities between Bruno and Alberto.
Look, if I could help anymore, I would, but that's all I know. See more.
Firstly, Bruno's room in Casita is a tower, and Alberto also lives in a tower in Luca. Another connection between them is green glass. When Bruno gets his visions, they always appear on green glass, and if you look around Alberto's tower, there are green sea glass bottles all around. But is this enough to assume the two are related? Is this theory true? The chances of Bruno from Encanto being Alberto's father are super slim, but it's not impossible. There are a few connections and clues that might make you believe the theory is true, such as the timing and the fact that Bruno is missing. However, there are many holes in the theory that make it mainly unbelievable. First off is Bruno's obvious love for his family. He said that he never left the Madrigals, so it's hard to believe that he would abandon his son.
The end. If our fate's up to me says, have another vision. Maybe it'll show me what to do.
Look, even if I wanted to, which I don't, you wrecked my vision cave.
If Bruno is Alberto's dad, then he probably fathered Alberto after the events of Encanto. This is the only way this theory can add up, because no one could leave the town until the end of Encanto. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think about the theory? Do you think Bruno is Alberto's father? Or is this theory completely outrageous? Let us know in the comment section below. Check out this other recent clip by Director's Choice. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification button so you never miss an episode.